Hey, everybody, this is Rihanna Werner, and I'm here with my co-host, Jason Sheffield.
Hey, everyone.
And we are your hosts of Show Me Yours. Today, you are in for a spectacular treat. You are about to meet the king of entertainment here in Colorado Springs. I am sure at one point he has probably made you feel like you're about to hit an epileptic episode. Well, in today's episode, we're talking with my good friend, Matt Stoneback of Eddie Sound and Rockbox. Matt founded this company out of a pure desire and a little bit of history, but to bring entertainment to Colorado Springs in the best form possible. And you can see his work anywhere from a snowball dance on up to the Broadmoor. So we're going to talk with Matt about all kinds of really good things. But first, Matt, tell us a little bit about Eddie Sound, Rockbox, and what you guys do.
So Eddie Sound is, best way to put it, is a AVL company, so audio video lighting company, especially specialized in live production, live events, and started it because when I moved out here, actually interviewed at some different places. It just wasn't going to work out at that point in time in my life, so I kind of went a totally different direction with a career, and then full circle back around, even though I had a full career that was like paying my bills, I was like, I still want to do this. So I kind of started a company on the side. And then slowly it got to a point where I had to leave that other job because I had kind of booked myself too busy that I couldn't actually juggle both. So stepped out on my own and just started doing just live events for everything from corporate to faith-based to a lot of work in like area schools, government contracts. And then from there, like the schools took off. So that's where Rockbox comes from. And we got a little bit worried about the branding and that people would, the best way to put it is you talk about, we do stuff at the Broadmoor. I wouldn't want someone that would be like at a Broadmoor event, look and see photos or videos of us in a high school, because then they kind of would have a thought like, oh, they can only do this style of work. So then we made Rockbox as a DBA. And so the funny part is like schools really don't even know who Eddie Sound is. They only know us as Rockbox. The people who pay us know because of some of that documentation, but for the students, we're Rockbox. And then it's nice when people are working with us underneath Eddie Sound, they don't really ever see that we work in high schools. So it's all a branding deal.
Yeah, it totally is. And it makes sense. It can totally be confusing because I understand the woes of operating underneath two businesses, two names, all of that. But I love the story of your names. Can you tell us a little bit where you came up with both the names?
No, it makes sense. So Eddie Sound, it came from, and it's kind of funny, we're working on our website right now. And one of the things is, who's Eddie? So, right, we get asked all the time. So a lot of times I answer the phone and they're like, hey, is this Eddie? And I will always just say yes, because it is Eddie Sound, but they assume they're talking to somebody by the name of Eddie. And then I'll be like, yeah, this is Eddie. I'm like, this is Matt. And then we get to business pretty quickly. But so Eddie Sound comes from, I was sitting around with my wife and we kind of made a decision we were going to do this. We were like, what are we going to call it? And, you know, not against anybody else in the community, but we were like, there's Rocky Mountain this and Pikes Peak that and Front Range this. And I was like, that none of that matters. Like there's no like personal connection. It just was a name that says, hey, you work in the Colorado region. Yeah.
It's geography.
Correct. And we just, I don't know, that doesn't resonate with me. And so the funny of the story is, for us that are older, we'll all remember AOL Instant Messenger.
Oh yeah. Boy.
And my handle was Eddie Soundman. And the reason why it was Eddie Soundman is because the school that I went to, the music building, was the Sarah C. Eddie Music Building. And I was the guy who had all these different jobs, but I worked in like the recording studios and the music labs, and I worked as the audio engineer in the attached venue there, that I was the sound guy. So my handle was Eddie Soundman. So for us, it made a lot of sense. And anybody who's from back at home, right? We've been out here a long time. But at the time, if you think about when I started the business, everybody who knew me back in the day was like, oh, Eddie Sound. Like that totally makes sense for who you are. And I've been told I need to change it because we do everything, and everybody's like, it's bad, and you need to Eddie's Productions, and we're just like, nope, it's going to be Eddie Sound. That's who we are, and we're going to make our own brand, and it's worked. I mean, no one calls me and says I didn't realize you own lights, right? Like they figure it out.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then Rockbox is actually interesting. So then we figured out that we might have confusion in the marketplace between our different clients. So we have to come up with this other name, and I actually worked with a designer in town who was really well known. I think he's in Denver now. I mean, he does stuff for like Honda, Acura, like all these crazy big brands. And from my other employment, I got to meet him because he did some contract work for us. So I literally went to him and paid way too little bit of money. And we did this whole like brainstorming color scheme thing to figure out what it was. And what it came down to, Rockbox really comes down to, because we joke, we work in high schools. Mm-hmm. And we go into high schools, we're always in big square rooms. So kind of like our little slogan is that we rock the box, because we go into big square and rectangular rooms. Even if we're in like a convention center, it's always a box, and we turn it into like a club or something special. So that's where Rockbox came from, is that Rockbox rocks the box. And that's the kind of tongue in cheek. So that one actually had real branding thought behind it. Eddie Sound was like, I was young.
It was legacy.
It's legacy.
It's legacy. There's something special about legacy.
And again, like we get asked this a lot, and so on our website soon we'll have this story, and I actually am going to reach out to the college and get a picture of the building, because I have one, but I don't like the picture because I'm in it, just being honest. So I'm going to get a picture without me in it, and it shows the plaque on the building. Maybe that will help people make sense of it.
Probably will.
I also don't care. I mean, is that terrible?
No.
Okay. It's a brand we created.
It is. And it's a name.
Yep.
I mean, there's so much more in describing who you are and what you do than even just the name. All right. Like BRW tax and accounting. BRW, a lot of people say it, and they're like, what is that? Don't
but
understand.
if they think about it for a minute.
Yeah, just a minute.
I know.
It doesn't take long.
You'd be surprised how many people don't put it together, though.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah. So talking about legacy, as you were building the businesses, what song would describe your experience in building Eddie Sound and Rockbox?
I don't know if I have the answer to that one.
Yeah, you do. You're Mr. Eddie Sound, remember?
Yeah, but
you rock the box.
Okay, but here's the crazy part. You may not believe this about me. I don't remember the names of songs.
Really?
Even my favorite artist, I don't know a lot of the names of their songs, because it's very much the actual physical music itself.
Yeah.
So like to even name a song, like I can name you a whole bunch of terrible songs that we had to play in high schools because I know them. I have to play them.
Yeah.
But I'm very much more, I don't know, I connect things mentally to the actual music itself. But it's because I'm a classically trained musician, so that's what it goes to. Even lyrics don't matter to me.
Really?
Yeah.
It's more in just the score.
Yes.
Really?
So I wish I don't know what the answer for that question would be. And I figured you would probably think I would have that answer, but I don't.
I know. I thought I was going to go with the ultimate cliche question here.
No.
Yeah.
Is that terrible?
No. Can you sing? Can you sing something for us?
I just don't.
We will rock.
No.
Like
And I think too, I probably have too much music that is like linked to linked to things that like. So there's certain songs now I have to play out. I think of as like it could be the best song in the world, but I think of it as like a high school, which then it's like kind of buzzkill.
Yeah. Okay, let me change directions.
All right.
What's the worst piece of business advice anybody ever gave you?
Oh, I know that. So when I started to build a company, one of the things I noticed in town was there's a lot of sound companies, and that's very important. I named my company Eddie Sound because I'm an audio guy by trade. And I instantly realized, because when you start small, you kind of subcontract with a lot of people. There's not a lot of us in town. So to get work, someone need extra person, you go do it. And so when I did all these shows, I noticed that all the sound companies really only did sound. And I thought that was weird because they would get asked to put up like lighting, and they would do it, but it was always very like the sound might be amazing, but the lighting was kind of terrible.
Really?
Well, because it's an afterthought.
Huh.
And so I noticed that as I was building my business on the side. And so then I was like, I'm going to start to buy lights, because if I buy lights, I have something that my competitors in town don't have. and I can achieve it. So then what ended up happening is I bought a moving head, so an intelligent moving head instead of just a regular light. And I remember I had told one of the other people in town this, and they said that was a terrible decision and that I should never, like, that was just going to be bad and I shouldn't own any of them and that they were going to break and it was going to be a big problem for me. And I now own hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And maybe there's one other guy in town who's a good friend of mine who specializes in lighting. I think he owns more, but other than that, we're the biggest ones in town and everybody calls us for them.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm glad I went with my gut because
Yeah.
I was like, no, like, this is something that our community needed, because I'd go to other communities, even just Denver or on the Front Range or out of state, and you'd see these amazing, beautiful setups, and it sounded great, but then it also looked good.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it. And that was the advice. Don't get into moving lights. Don't get into lighting. There's no money in it. That was kind of what was told to me. I think actually there's no money in it was the exact words.
Interesting how people are afraid of change.
We've proven that wrong.
Yeah.
Huh? Doesn't that feel good?
We have a lot of people that just call us for lights now.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's the main
We don't
piece.
give them any audio at all.
Wow.
So
Okay.
did you have these
Pull a
all
question.
specially made?
No.
okay.
I wish. I do have a Jenga game with questions that I had specially made, which we need to bust out sometime
yeah.
soon. Yeah.
Which fictional character would you adopt into your extended family to make gatherings more interesting?
Ooh.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean, this is fun because I can probably just pick anything that would be interesting.
Right.
Fictional character. It makes you go like, do I want a cartoon or do I want someone off of TV?
And the plug, the kicker is to make events more interesting. Right? Because there's that
Yeah, it's more-
entertainment factor.
It's more
Not like you have to live with
interesting.
them.
Oh boy. I feel like I need to pick a cartoon person. Okay, no, I know who
Okay.
I'd pick. No, I know who I'd pick. It's because I have children. And because my wife loves this person. I would literally pick Bluey.
Bluey? Really?
And the reason I say that is
Okay.
because it brings joy to my wife whenever my kids will watch it. That's the one show that she always laugh about because of all the comedy back and forth. And so if you wanted to make it interesting because of the banter, I pick Bluey.
Bluey.
It's really bizarre and random, but it like would be hilarious because my whole family would be laughing all the time.
Oh my gosh.
My daughter would be at your house all the time.
Oh, my youngest
Loves
would
Bluey.
be in stitches, but then more importantly for me, my wife would be laughing, which would be fun to watch.
Okay, full disclosure, my kids are older. I have never seen Bluey. Ever, ever, ever. And so when you guys say Bluey, I think of Blue's Clues from when my kids
no,
were little.
totally. And it's Australian, right?
I think New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Or Australia,
Really?
New Zealand. Yeah.
Yep.
It's like a family of dogs.
Yep.
And it's the only kids cartoon that made me cry.
And Bluey is a girl,
And Bluey is a girl.
Bluey is a girl.
which
Yep.
I didn't realize that for a long time, but Bluey is a girl. The
Yep.
banter between Bluey and the other, I don't know if the other one's a male or female, and then mom and dad is to die for. And it's one of these cartoons where I feel like they do inside jokes with the adults that we can understand, but our kids.
Oh, fully. There's,
Really?
Oh, yeah. There's some episodes I'm like, this is some of the greatest television I've ever seen. Because it's actually addressing meaningful concepts and it's well written and they're 8-minute episodes. So there's like, I think there's
Is it like a YouTube show or something?
no, it's on Disney.
Now the theme song will drive you nuts.
Oh, yes. Now get this. Disney picked up the rights to it. It is the most streamed minutes watched on the entire Disney platform. It
Get
beats out Star
out.
Wars. It beats out Marvel. It beats out billions of dollars that they've spent. And the most amount of streamed minutes is Bluey.
I never thought I'd say this, but now I feel like I need to go add to those streaming minutes and check this show out.
mean-
Especially if
worth
it's
it.
8 minutes.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Really?
They have-
Okay, Bluey.
It's a very holistic family.
The dad
Cute.
is actually like engaged and
Yes.
like I'm like finally like a dad that's not an idiot. Like he's actually a quality father figure on a television show with
Always playing with the kids.
always
Really?
engaged playing.
Yeah, what's up with father figures never being portrayed as like good, solid dads
Yep.
on
Well, because
TV?
my
That's
fictional character was going to be
awesome.
Homer Simpson. I mean, come on, Homer would be amazing to bring.
Well, and I was trying to think, do I want to go somewhere like off of a movie or like a TV show? But then I was like, cartoon would just be more interesting
It would be.
anyway.
See, mine was going to be Clark Griswold. So there we
Oh,
go.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
My problem is like a fictional person. I watch way too much like reality-ish TV.
Do you?
Well, that's because all they make anymore, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah.
And like if you come to our house and we're not big TV people, but the TV's on, the cooking channel's on.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, can I have Bobby Flay be in my family? That'd be fun.
That could be
It'd
interesting.
be good too.
Gordon Ramsay all day.
Oh man.
Or
I just
Guy.
want- Yes.
Yeah.
I
Oh.
want to go to drivers, the dine-in.
Dine-in, drivers and
Yeah.
dives.
I'd do that all day with them. But still, if I had to go fictional, it's Bluey.
All right.
If it was real, it'd probably be someone off the cooking channel. Plus, they would cook for us.
Exactly.
Win-win. Happy Thanksgiving to me.
Every day.
Exactly. Okay, Jason,
All
what's
right,
your question?
here's my question. I want to know, what is an unusual habit that you've picked up for the way you conduct business that's actually made you a better owner?
Unusual habit.
An unusual habit, something weird that you do that you feel like is unique to you.
I'll tell you something. I don't know if it's a habit, but it's something that can be something I say.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So one of my biggest things when I try to lead my employees is, I don't do it as much anymore, but when I used to hire people, I tell them this. I'm like, hey, when we teach you stuff, sometimes we're going to teach you, a certain way, but I will always tell you why we're teaching you it and why. So there's two reasons why we would teach you. One is because, well, I guess three. So one's like, this is a safe way you have to do it. Mm-hmm. Two for me would be, it's because it's the industry standard. And so this is how we have to do it in this industry to be accepted. And then three is my habit. And the third habit would be because I'm telling you to do it. But the joke or the phrase is, and we kind of joked about it already, is I usually will tell them it. And if they look at me, then I will very politely, and it's like a big joke, but I'll be like, it's good to be king. And so I use that phrase a lot as it's good to be king. And it's not to be disrespectful to them, but it's my polite way of telling them, this is my call. I'm making the call. If I'm wrong, it's still my call, and I'm going to die on my own call. And so that's my little habit, is it's good to be king. And that's kind of how I will go back to them. And that's the way of saying, because, sometimes too, the industry standard, it may be the industry standard, but for how I'm trying to build my business, it's not appropriate, and we want to do better. Yeah. And so then it's the king's way. It's my way, because we're trying to uplift the business or uplift the world that we live in. So that's probably that's a little quirk, but it's worked well, because it lets your people understand, you can kind of sometimes say it's going to be king. It's kind of a way of even saying, hey, I know I sound like I'm a jerk right now, but I'm in charge and I need it done this way. And there's understanding, and there's trust that's built. They're like, okay, it's Matt's way. We're going to do it Matt's way. But then if you talk to some of my employees, they're like, oh. And so yeah, my radio, we have two-way radios sets. And so I'm the radio number one that I always get. And all of our nicknames, because we all have nicknames, it says the king on it. So it actually has it on the radio when I get it. And people have asked, what's that mean? And I'll literally be like, it's just good to be king. It's the polite way of saying I own it.
To follow you down that path, though, the crown is heavy.
Yep.
I mean, it may be good to be king, but with those decisions, it's not just a decision, it's the risk that comes with it, because you have to pay the ultimate price based on that decision. So I'd assume you and I have had a lot of conversations about decisions. And I know this for a fact, as a matter of fact, that while you trust and empower your team to make decisions, when it comes to those really important ones that matter the most, that can impact you the most, that's when you do, as a king, have to step in. So yeah, in a way, it's good to be a king, but it's really hard to be a king too.
It's good when you get to tell them what the decision is. It's not so great when the decision you made backfires, and then you have to live in the fact that you're the one that made the call.
And oftentimes you're saving them from that backfire by making that decision, because I find it harder as a leader when my team member makes a bad call and I have to be the one to pay the price, which I'm fine with, but seeing my team member have to live with that I've seen a couple team members where it just kills them, and I never want to do that to anybody.
But hold on, I'm going to go. That means you have really good team members and employees.
Oh my God, I do though.
So what I tell everybody, it's like, and I was like this, I know I was like this because of a situation that happened to me in my former employment life when I was working for people. But it's always good when you need to talk to someone about something hard as an owner, and you can see that they're beating themselves up more than it's either warranted or that you're willing to go, because for me, that shows they have skin in the game and they deeply care about what they are doing. So I'd rather have that employee all day.
Oh, yeah.
Than have an employee who sits in there and is very flippant with me. And they're like, I don't understand why this is a big deal. And, you just need to get over it. The employee that literally is like beating themselves up.
Yep.
That's the employee that I want.
I would take give a shit any day over pedigree.
Yeah.
Any day. If you have heart in the game, I don't care where you went to college or if you went to college.
Yep.
I would say the thing being the positions that I've held, always more of that entrepreneur, right? Partnering with the kings in many ways. I found in organizations where there is a king, things flow so much easier because people know where the buck stops.
Yep.
Yeah.
When an owner doesn't take the position of being king, it makes the team think that they have to pick that up. And when they do, it's like it gets weird.
Yep.
Right.
It
So
does.
it's like an old boss that I used to have used to say, like, this is not a democracy. I'm the king. This is like what I say goes. And if you don't like that, then, but I think more small businesses owners need that mentality of like, this is it. It's buck stops here. I'm the king.
And I like to, because I definitely empower my people, but what I've liked as we've grown, even since we've known each other, is that I've been able to actually step back and let them do their jobs a little bit more. But I love that I can be then the trump card.
Yeah.
So we had a situation even the last couple of days where I know exactly what my employee was doing. Unbelievable, doing their job through and through. And they were through a third party. We were just kind of getting stonewalled. And
We've had that same exact experience.
and it was given to me.
familiar.
And I said, I got it from here. And then I took an email and I CC'd the person on it. And guess what?
Movement.
The clouds opened, and now
Right.
we're getting where we needed to get, and it had nothing to do with the employee's ability, but it was nice because they were empowered to run it, and they have all the power in the world. But then it's nice to be able to finally be like, I'll go ahead and push it for us real quick.
Yeah.
And it did exactly what I hoped it would do.
Well, I think it also speaks to like understanding what a good king is, right? I mean, there's bad kings and there's good, so just because I think sometimes we use that adage, it's important to realize like there's good leadership, there's good kings that run a quality kingdom, if you will, and then there's the bad kings.
And I think that the good to be king is my way of jokingly to be able to be like, hey, I'm in charge, without having to look at people and be like, hey, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
And they take it as understanding like, okay, like Matt drew the line at this point. Like, there's the line. I'm making the call. This is what we're going to do. And versus me having to be like, hey, I'm in charge here. You have to. So it's just a very nice tongue-in-cheek way.
Yeah.
And I started it by accident, and it just kind of is a joke now.
It's a nice, light, kind way of reinforcing authority.
Yeah.
It's a good way of doing that. From the HR perspective, it's interesting that we're having this conversation because I'll tell you guys, Jason, I think you're spot on when it comes to kings. I have walked into more organizations where there is no king. And oftentimes it's that leader who had a bad leader in their past. And so they just want to be a nice leader. So they don't take that king or that authority-ship. And the team just takes advantage. And it becomes weird, as you had mentioned. And those are the hardest cultures to actually unravel and actually bring to a quality culture. I can take a bad king any day and help them guide and move into a good culture. But the lack of king, that's a tough one. It is. It's interesting that you brought that up. What a cool conversation.
We never know where it's going.
I know, right? That's the fun of a podcast, right? Perfect transition, though. The heaviness of the crown. The purpose of this conversation today, we'll transition into the meat and potatoes here, is the biggest mistake we've made as leaders, and we're going to unpack and dissect. And as you've been preparing for today, I'm sure you've put a little bit of thought into it. And I'm really curious to see what we're going to talk about.
I didn't
ask.
think about it.
Did you?
I didn't think about it.
Did you? Our last
I ran it
guest-
by my wife. I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking.
See, that's
So, wait, can we say that before we go?
Yeah.
So I may be the king, but I do have a queen.
Oh, always.
And-
every good king does.
and as much as I own the business, because I do solely own it, I don't do any big decisions without running it by her. She's
for you.
she's my litmus test because she knows me more than even my employees. Some of them have been with me a very long time, but she'll tell me right away if I'm like going off of where she's ever seen me go in the history. So Anyway, so I just
She's
had
a
to
good
throw that in
lady.
there. So.
Yeah. I think we all need that sounding board, though.
Yep.
You know, I know Brian's that way for me all the time. You know, not that he's my queen, he's my king, but still, you have to have that.
Yep.
So I think that, as I was saying, heavy is the crown, because we're human in business. And while we make all of the decisions, we have all the authority, the buck stops with us, we still screw up.
Yep.
How'd you screw up?
So
What'd you do?
I've done it like multiple
Here, by the way,
times.
really quick.
Yeah,
Cheers.
So, cheers.
Take a drink real quick.
I've done it multiple times. So my multiple times. Okay, so when you own a business too, and we get to do a lot of fun things, and then you do a lot of work too that like you have to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's not fun, but like, you know, it's not like you wake up and you're like, yes, like
You got to feed the beast.
Yeah. So my biggest mistake, and it's with an S. My biggest mistakes is that I am kind of a sucker for wanting to do cool things. And so the way to put it is like, you know, when you, in our industry, it can be very visual. And so, you know, even like you go to a show, once you work in industry, you don't really enjoy a show anymore. Like you do, but you don't, but you're like,
sucks.
What kind of equipment do they have? What kind of lights do they have? Right. You're always, and it's not a comparison. I don't feel less than, but you're just more like, how are they doing this? What can I learn? What do I not like? So I like to do cool things, and I always want to stretch probably bigger than we are, and maybe do things that are bigger than where the company currently is. And so that's where my problem lies, is that I will go do some of these events because I want to do them. And then it's happened, and it's happened at different levels, but then I end up getting burned on the other side because I don't get paid for it. So it's like a bad thing, because in our industry, there's a couple of rules that every mentor's ever told me. And I definitely run my business a little bit differently, but when you make this mistake, you start to question if you really need to listen to your mentors more. But there's an old adage that 100% in the production industry stands, which is you do not open the back of your truck until you've been paid in full. So if I were to show up to an event, a concert, a corporate event, whatever, you already look at them and be like, if I'm being paid in full, the truck doesn't open and we don't move any gear. And that is unfortunately not how I do business. Part of that is some of my, a lot of my contracts are somewhat government-based, be it a school, still government, or government-based, and bluntly, they're not paying you beforehand. That's their own policies of the government. You're going to have to put in your invoice, wait 30 days, you get paid.
But it's still government work, so I mean,
you know
there's
you're
a
getting paid.
little bit of
The government has to balance their books.
Yes.
So we talk about with like Brian and what he does, like the books have to be balanced. They're not going to not pay you. We've had ones that have missed us a school,
or they might lag.
Well, they'll forget. Like somehow, like you work for an advisor who remembers a teacher, and it never makes it to who actually is going to write the check. And we've messaged after we know their budget year is closed, sometimes 9-10 months later, and we always get paid because they feel bad right away, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like the budget isn't balanced and we didn't pay."
Yeah.
So the problem has been is I will do these other events, and in my growth, there's 3 that stick out, and they just, as you scale your business, they get larger.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, well, you do this and then you lost that money, and then you do this and you lost that money, and then you do this. And so it's been hard because, right, I'm a for-profit business.
You are?
But at the same time, I don't do anything that I'm not prepared to take a swim on. It's probably the best way to put it. So I wanted to do it. Not my people. I wanted to do it. So that's the king.
Yeah.
But it sucks.
But you paid the ultimate price.
And
you
then
didn't get paid.
And now we're a business that I have people that sit in pretty high roles and do very important things to me. And they know.
Yeah.
They can see my books, the ones that have access to it. The people who are operational know.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they, you know, in their defense, they want me to go out and go get your money, like go get it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes you got to let it go. You just got to move on. Like, why look back?
But I mean, there goes circling back around there's that great team, right?
Yep.
They care. They give a shit.
Oh, they care.
They're looking out for your best interest when you're probably not.
Correct.
Right? You're like, I'm done. You're probably, licking your wounds a little bit.
Yep.
Caring for yourself, but they're caring for you too. That's pretty spectacular.
And the worst part is like, you say, right? You sent everything out and I'm looking at it before the podcast and it's like, what's your biggest mistake? And I mean, we've been blessed. Like we haven't made huge, like other mistakes that I can think of. We've been blessed. We haven't had injuries and we haven't had catastrophic failures or anything like that. But then I just had to laugh because I was like, well, I know what the biggest mistake is. The biggest mistake is I literally went out and did pro bono. I mean, we do pro bono work, but the stuff I'm talking about wasn't meant to be pro bono.
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
You still had to pay your staff.
Oh,
You still had
yes.
to transport the equipment, pay gas.
You want the worst part of some of
mileage.
it was? Some of it had some pretty expensive sub contracts, and all those people I paid in full because I don't want to look bad.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
not
your
their business.
reputation.
And I'm not. I've had people call. I have had partner companies call me and be like, "Hey, can you do me a favor? I didn't get paid." I've actually had that happen, and I've done it, but I refuse to do that because it's not their fault. So the people that I've made an agreement with, they had to get paid in full. So that, I mean, you're really taking a pretty big hit because your people obviously have never missed a payroll in the history of the company. I never will. So like they're going to get paid. All my other subs get paid. And then, I crack it up for like all the things I'm thinking about. I have great media that we were able to capture.
So I'm curious in this, like, I want to know a time, two things.
Yep.
I want to know a time where you stretched yourself, you took on a project, that it was worth it because you learned something new or you saw how the kind of that expansion supported you. And then when was a time where you went for it and it didn't support you?
Okay, so I'll tell you that. So the one I can talk about easily where I didn't get paid because bluntly, this individual, if they ever saw a podcast, I won't say names or anything, but
They'd know.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Sure.
So, and I can do complete specifics because it doesn't bother me. So we did an arena show up at CU Boulder, and that was definitely a stretch for us. We had the know-how, but like we had never done anything on that caliber before. So the success was great because we did it, and we did it flawlessly, and like we really, I mean, it was probably the biggest stage in a sense that we'd ever supported. And so that builds a lot of confidence in your team.
Yeah.
And, and you're getting to know me more as we've got, but I have a very young team. So in the industry, if you look in town, like most of my competitors are either around my age or slightly under, and then they have what I'm going to call full adults that work for them. Because my team, until recently, my oldest employee was like 26 years old. So my team was 18 to 26. And I can tell you at the time when the one I'm talking about, like, think about it. We went and did an arena and a whole bunch of 20-year-olds walked in and did an arena show.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And like other companies with people who've been in the industry for 20 and 30 years would have struggled to do what we did. So that right there, and like to watch your team walk out, it didn't matter. I didn't get paid. Their chests were so filled. They were walking so high. There's chips on their shoulders and they deserve every chip on their shoulder. Like you can't do anything but be proud.
Yeah.
And you watch these guys like work 18 and 20-hour days and give you blood, sweat, and tears. And then to see it go off and then to watch them go tell all their friends, hey, we did this concert with this person. Nah, who cares about the money?
Yeah.
Literally, who cares about the money? And the cool part was it was a promoter who didn't pay me, and even it was up at CU Boulder. CU Boulder through the athletics department. I mean, I had great conversations with them afterwards. They know I took a dive, but you know what? My head was held high. They had amazing things to say about me and about my team, and everything that we did, and that's all that mattered. That was worth more than any dollar that I could go put in a bank account.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. What was the other question?
When does it not work well? Like, where has it failed? You took a risk and then it was like, oh, that.
I don't know if so on all the ones I'm thinking about, they've all been okay. Like there's a positive side. I think where it fails is now you start talking about a 20-hour day and what it takes out on your team. And sometimes that money would have been nice to offset the exhaustion, if that makes sense. I mean, they're not going to necessarily get that, but I guess you take for us, you take a physical toll. So some of the one of the big one that I'm thinking about, that one, like we had to turn pretty tight to be able to, and we live that lifestyle sometimes where, you know, you're not proud of it, but like we get out at 2 a.m. and we're back on site at 7 a.m. and everybody did go home. But
Yeah.
you got wind down time, get up. So I think that's where it doesn't pay off is that, and we run, like we watch our labor a lot. We're a pretty lean, mean team. We can get big when we need to be. I've gotten really good at telling when we're at breaking points on specific people, and you start to learn their body language, their speak. And that's where it's not worth it because you feel bad.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have to ask them to dig where you're like, I can't, but I don't have a choice.
But that's not all the time for you guys either. You
No.
guys are highly seasonal. So
Correct.
there's definitely the rest
Yes.
periods. I mean, there are those on moments, kind of like a CPA, right? Tax season, boom, 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 boom. But then you have those rest times.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess that kind of
which helps.
I'm curious to maybe also open this thread up of like, where have you experienced some either mistakes or learnings in running a team where there's a lot of pressure, a lot of potential conflict, personalities of like, I mean, the shit has to go off seamlessly. Like you don't exist, right? I mean,
Correct.
A great show.
You
I
never
don't know
see us.
you're there. How do you manage a team, or what have you learned, or what mistakes have you made with employment side of things of getting a team to perform to that level?
There's one thing you figure out real quick when you hire someone, and I can team speak with some of my higher up, and that team speak is you can see pretty quickly if you hire an employee who can hang with the speed that we go. I don't know how else to put it, but you can just tell after I mean, they can work for you for a week and a half. They get out on maybe 2 or 3 shows. You can see. So we definitely, like from an HR perspective, that's not really clear on paper.
Yeah.
Like they could be an extremely intelligent person, had great jobs, whatever, but then you take them out, and even at the end of maybe like a 12-hour day that we know wasn't bad, and they literally like, you're pretty sure you just literally like took a year off of their life in one day.
There's no way you can gauge energy
Yeah.
on a resume or even during an interview. There's just no way.
Yep.
And what you guys do requires a lot of energy.
So you figure that out. The other thing too, like on where you see it the most, or where you have to act as an employer, in my point of view at this point, when it comes to really about exhaustion, is when you're running in a heavy season. So I mean, there's weeks where, we'll start going pretty hard on like Tuesday, and it's not going to end until Sunday. And that Friday, Saturday, depending if it's like a high enough end show or a stressful show, the way you take care of it is you have to move people. So there's sometimes where you have to walk up and be like, you're done, go walk away for a minute. Or you have to be like, hey, step away from the console. Hey, on the console. All you're trying to do is just change it up enough to like help them have a moment to bring that stress down. And they are good enough, especially, I mean, again, I've blessed most of my people have been with me for a while now. They know what's happening without you even having to say what's happening. Oh, yeah. So they understand that movement is like, oh, yeah. And they'll speak really well about it too. Like even after the fact, like I've had employees come to me and be like, hey man, sorry. Like I'm just like really, really tired. I'm like, yep, I know.
But that's a lot about your leadership though. You taught them to recognize that, and then you gave them the authority to call it. Not a lot of employers do that. They don't teach their employees to recognize their burnout, their stress, their edge, their
They still don't love
point.
it. Trying to give them a day off is
that.
like so hard because my people don't want a day off. In busy season, if you give them 1 or 2 days off, they'll actually come and be like, did I do something wrong? I'm like, no, like go home, sleep. Like I need you next weekend. Like that's what I'm doing to you. But they're like, but I want to work. I'm like, no, you don't.
I want you on your A game.
Yep.
Well, and how much of that is because something like your industry, people enjoy the thing that they're doing.
Like, they love what they do.
To do.
No, they love
the
what they
lighting
do.
And the audio and the visuals.
My people, I think the reason why I've been successful with the age group that I have, one, you find the hard workers.
Yeah.
But two, and you guys, you definitely know, and We literally get to do some of the coolest things in Colorado Springs.
You do.
And we are behind the scenes. And, you know, and none of that, I'll say this, none of this is to be a flex, but like there's months at a time where like the governor will be on our stage like every other week. And the weeks when he's not on it, then the mayor's on it. And then when the mayor's not on it, then it's the CEO of so-and-so and the CEO of so-and-so and the CEO of so-and-so. I mean, even during COVID, I did one of the presidents. I never thought I'd do that. And so they want to be there. And that's just like notable people. We can go a whole nother route with musicians. They're like, you know, we're doing who? Yeah, like this is a musician. And so it's fun to be in the crowd at those things, but it's also fun to be able to move seamlessly behind the scenes. I mean, think about it. We never get stopped because we're there to do work.
Yeah.
So we have credentials.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, especially for your team members to be like, oh my gosh, I kept the spotlight on so-and-so.
Yep.
I kept their microphone on. I was able to make sure that their show kept running. And it's not just one so-and-so. I mean, it's this huge list. Of
And it never
so-and-sos.
stops.
I know. Sometimes I want to come work for you.
It's
For
fun.
the record.
Well, and I hate to say it, but when you hire people, you tell them like, hey, the pay may not be great, but you're going to have a lot of fun here. We're going to treat you really well. And you're going to get to see amazing things that you wouldn't get to see otherwise. And I always laugh because Colorado Springs can be, you know, it's the big town that's really small and then vice versa. And I always laugh that we do like a lot of private events. And then you can speak about it. There's no NDAs, but you'll tell people afterwards and people in town like, that happened here?
Oh,
What?
yeah.
Who was here? And I was like, you should go by this place more often. There's a lot of people that just kind of swing through all the time and that we get. So it's that whole, you're constantly invited into basically private events that no one knows about.
Big celebrities, big names that
big
you
name
would
people.
never even know that their feet were on our
And it's all
soil.
types of celebrities because we work with a lot of stuff with the Olympics. The number of Olympians that I have met in the last 3 years is insane. Like, and I mean, some of my guys don't really always know who the Olympian is, but I do. So I'll like get a picture of when they're on the stage and I send it to my mom and dad because my mom and dad were like, watch them compete.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool because my people will be like, who's that? It's like, that's a big name of like Olympian. Like when I was like 6 and 8 years old, I watched that Olympian on TV.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, they're standing on my stage. Like, that's the cool moment.
Way to turn your parents into those jerks at dinner parties. Oh, look at my son. He's with so-and-so. Like, gosh, I really hate hanging out with those Stonebacks. They're always bragging about their son and who he's hanging out with.
I like to do it with my sister because my sister's a big music person.
Oh,
so I
nice.
like to, and she's not always like the big name, right? We're not doing huge names all the time, but like we'll do a band and I like send her to be like, no way. Like I just saw them and she's back out on the East Coast. And so she'll be like, oh, I just saw them. I'm like, well, we just worked with them. Like, that was cool.
That's amazing. Really quick, I want to rewind just a little bit. You had alluded to the fact that when you were in the midst of deciding whether to work with an organization or a promoter or whoever it is, and there were times when people gave you kind of the red flag and said, whoa, don't do that.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like it was pretty consistent. That's what I'm kind of picking up on. A lot of these bum deals, people were giving you warnings. What do you think those warning signs were? Like, how did these people pick up on it?
Oh, like how did I pick up on it to them or how did I see it?
Yeah. Either way, like clearly there were red flags. What were the red flags or how'd you pick up on them? Sounds like people warned you. What the hell did they know and you didn't?
No, I know how I always knew on the, and again, it's like 3 particular times. You just start to get wind that you can tell you overhear something or see something and it becomes very clear that the funding agent is not there. That the funding agent is not as solid as you might hope the funding agent is. And then you have to make a decision. Are you going to take it or not? And again, like if it's cool, and I don't know how cool is like such a lowbrow word for me to describe, but like if it's something that like I want to be a part of that, I already put a lot of effort into it. I know that we can make it big, but then I start to scheme in my head already. Like I said, I have really good content from all of those. So when I saw it coming, you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So you start to self-serve. So the digital cameras are coming out and the videos are coming out and you You just make sure you document what you're doing, because what in my head as a business owner is like, if I probably never going to get paid for this, but I'm going to have proof I did it, and we're going to do it at a high level, and then I'm going to leverage that to get me my next job that's paying.
Yeah.
And so all the events I'm thinking about, I have leveraged the things that we did to further my company. So it's one of my tenets. You never want to get into a deal that you can't, like, okay, so we get asked a lot to do stuff for reduced rates.
Cheap asses.
It's not that.
Kidding.
It's
I'm kidding.
for whatever reason. Sometimes it's a nonprofit. Sometimes a budget got cut. Whatever it is. I always approach all those deals that if I'm gonna do it, then I'm gonna get something out of it. So I try to teach even my employees, like, you want to make sure that you always want to be on the high road. So I always try to take the high road so that nothing negative could be said about us. So we are still going to perform the exact same level.
Okay.
And then if anything negative needs to be said, we know who the negativity can be said about. But then I don't go advertise that, because that also makes you look really terrible as a business person. Because why do you just want to run around town talking smack about people?
Absolutely.
So you always leverage that you're on top. And then, and to answer your question, I mean, you sense it. You'll see with the one promoter, like, I started getting wind that the financial agreement between that individual and the college, the university, maybe it wasn't what it all was.
Oh.
But you're in it deep enough at that point that, like, what are you going to do? Pack up your truck and leave? I mean, you'd have every right to. I could have. In every situation, I could have left.
But then you leave a fan-filled stadium sitting there, and who looks like the dud?
Yeah, because they don't know they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, the employees don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So you just have to lead. Like, you just got to keep going, because they don't know.
And he backed you into a corner, though.
Yeah, but I chose it.
All right, fair. You did.
But I'm
You
okay.
did.
Like,
Yeah.
again, I'm a sucker for. I like out of the box. I like opportunity. I like to do
Cool.
fun and cool things, because we do so much stuff that we get paid a lot of money for that's just boring.
What's your definition of cool? Like, what's your dream cool
I have
event
lots of
that you would
dream cool
happily take
events.
$0 for? Anybody watching, don't take this for granted.
No, I
Pay
don't.
him.
Well, hold on. I don't think it's. I don't think it's to take. I don't think it's to take no money for. I think it's. I like events. All right, so back to, like, even as I'm a kid, the reason why I got into sound and audio is, right, I was a classically trained musician. I love music. I saw the power of music and how music affects people. And I like, and well, you kind of know this because we worked with you on some of our mission, vision, value type stuff.
Yeah.
I have a 100% belief, proof, whatever you want to call it, that music can be latched to a memory. And so, like, I still to this day, which is kind of funny because you asked about, like, hey, what's this song? And I couldn't give you a song. But if you were to just play songs unknowingly, you would accidentally probably hit songs that the minute you played a song and I heard it,
Memory.
not even a memory, I can, like, physically feel myself in that situation. Like, I know, like, I'm there. And so I like anything where we can make such an impact that we have literally put that moment in time for whoever, that they will never forget it again for what. So that can be a corporate event, but for me, a lot of it is wrapped around a musical event.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, it's what I always tell my guys, like, when I stand back and I look, like, I teach my guys, like, audio engineering. I'm like, mix for chills. That's, I use that word a lot. I'm like, mix for chills. They're like, what do you mean? I said, chills are when you're mixing and for a split second, you look up from the console and you look out and everything is right. It sounds right for that split second. The lighting is right, which you have no control over. The guy next to you does. The video's right. Like, the crowd's seeing the right thing. And I said, and you get chills. I said, then you made it. That's what I tell them how to mix. Don't become a robot. You mix for chills no matter what you're doing. So the events for me are like, I'm trying to get chills at events. That's a cool event. And that could be anything. Like, we have one coming up. We did the Hall of Fame for the Olympics, and we're about to do it again this year. And there's not a lot of music there. But, like, the last time we did it, it went flawlessly.
Did you get chills?
I don't know if I got chills, but there's times that one would be corporate's a little bit different because like you don't have like the crescendo that takes you.
Yeah.
But it is, I'll tell you this, as I've grown a company, it's when you stand back and you look and everything's perfect and all the people are doing their jobs. And, you know, for a corporate event, there's no feedback. Everybody can hear. They're lit properly. Everybody's all in. And those type of events, I sit back and I literally like, wow, I own this company.
Right.
Like literally you like start to be like, it gets unreal.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, like this is me. And you actually feel like you're attending it because the stress is so low because everything's working. That's the win.
Wow.
That's the win.
That's pretty spectacular.
And that's what we're known for. I mean, my guys know that I push a pretty hard, I have very, very high expectations. I definitely have a nice little anger streak in me, and my employees would say that. But the one thing I have noticed is that most of the time where I get upset or annoyed or anything like that, and they feel it, it's just normally because we're not to the level of perfection that I know we can be. And no one can ever be perfect. I want to be clear about that. But we shoot for excellence at all time. So I'm not usually like, I want to look at you and be like, I don't like what you're wearing. Da, da, da. Like that's not that. It's not that. It's like, hey, why wasn't the mic locked on? You know, that's our rule. You never give a mic to somebody who's not locked on because it's on our ball game. We unmute the mic. We don't ever let them do that.
Yeah.
And then I might get on for it. But it's because we know better and we want to be that level of a service provider.
I struggle with people not living up to their full potential. If you're on my
she says it way
team,
better than me.
but I think that's where you're.
I run an HR company. I know all the words.
I do. I went
know
to
all
college
the
for words. But I think that's kind of where you're going with it is you know the potential of your team because you've had those moments where it's pure perfection.
Yep.
Right. And you know that is your team. And that's what they're capable of.
Oh, yeah.
And so when they don't do that, hell yeah, that pisses me off too.
Yeah.
It's like, just come on.
And it's cool.
Yeah.
Like this industry that you're in has the capacity for perfection.
Yeah.
Like you can actually nail it, right? You can.
Yeah.
It can go off flawlessly.
One, I joke like I was telling you, I've done one other podcast in my life, and I talk about this in there, which is like I talked about the chills in there too. The chills are there, and then I joke. In the very next second, like you could have chills and then everything could go
Falls
off the rails.
Totally.
But but then too, I also figured out part of me is I enjoy adrenaline because that's the adrenaline of how do you put that train back on the tracks and do it quickly, flawlessly without anybody knowing.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing too. You got to find people who are a little bit at work for me that are a little bit adrenaline junkies.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're not, we're not like jumping like X Games or like doing crazy things on motorcycles, but there's still adrenaline in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because it's like for your company and what your team does, if things are executed perfectly, nobody notices.
Correct.
Right? Nobody knows. But if it falls off the rails, it is literally on the PA to thousands of people.
Well, the thing is, right, we always joke you never want to see people turn around and look at you.
Right.
That's the goal. You never want to see anybody turn and look. If they turn and look, you screwed up.
Yeah.
That's how you know. No one has to tell you.
It's just that glare.
And one of the biggest pet peeves is like when you're not like we're hired for something and we're not in complete control of an event. And I hate when another sub vendor can make a mistake, but then it comes back on us just because we can't fix it because like we weren't given the full control. And that's frustrating because people are looking at you and you're like, it's not me. So like, okay. Yeah. Here's my PSA. One of my pet peeves. I hate when people are like, yeah, like so you ask about pricing and if people come to us and like, hey, we don't have a great budget, but we really would like to use your services. And like, we have some equipment, we'll bring our own.
Yeah.
I've been burned too many times where we try to do a favor and then their equipment fails.
I've got a boom box in the back.
So what we'd rather do is be like, we're going to tell you what the full cost would be. And then we'll bring it down. And then they're always super sweet. They're like, we can bring our speakers. We have wireless microphones, whatever. And we're like, leave that all at home. We'll just turnkey the whole event with our equipment. because then we're guaranteed to be successful.
Yeah.
Because if not, if it fails, it's not like I can stand up to everybody and be like, so I just want to know that everything went well, but the reason why that microphone went out is because actually the people who are paying me brought it. Like, that's not a good look either.
We give them a deal on this situation. Yeah.
They brought their own equipment. It's their fault.
We had that happen. We had it happen recently at an event where we went in and we helped. And then because everybody knew we were tax, we tried to step in to go the extra mile, and it just went really not great with some notable people there. And then we had an event come up maybe like 4 months later, and we found out it was going to be in the same place. And so we overspec'd gear, left our price way down for the client. And then the funny part is I was actually on that show, which I'm not always on shows anymore, but I was on that show, and I walked in and we had still kind of agreed to like a half C thing. And I looked around, I turned around and looked at my people. I'm like, call the shop, they're loading the truck.
Yeah.
And we brought in everything. And
Did
I made a call that day. Luckily we were like 2 miles from our shop, and the client was like, what are you doing? And I was like, you're not paying for any of this, but like,
We've got to fix
we
this.
have to do it like this. And we just got booked by him again for this year.
Did you?
Yep. And I'll have to do
done,
the same
friend.
thing. Like, I'll have
Yeah.
to do, it's a nonprofit we're working with, but like, why I just can't risk that with what we do anymore.
You do the right thing.
The theme that like we're really exploring is this idea of how reputation is everything.
Yes.
Right? Maintaining this level of reputation. So what have you learned, or how have you kind of gotten into that reputation management side of things where you've really had to maintain this level of reputation that you guys have?
Like, what makes me do it?
Or how, I guess, or maybe also lessons learned, or just because
Yeah.
I think a lot of small business owners, right, when we're working in our communities, reputation is everything.
Yep.
And people talk,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? People talk behind closed doors, they'll tell stories. And so maintaining this level of reputation, like how have you done it, or what have you learned about it, like to maintain this quality reputation that you have?
I'll tell you how I learned it. So I talk about having another job. So I worked for the government for 10 years. I was in a government job. And then part of that job, probably like the last 5 years of the 10 years, I worked for PR. So I worked underneath all the PR people. I wasn't totally in PR, but I kind of was. And I worked for an elected official. So I learned very, very quickly about how that needed to look. And the organization was very paramilitary in its structure. So it was such a good learning ground to understand like a chain of command and ranking structure, and then how things had to be. And then like my job, like you're going to laugh. So somehow I was in my job and they needed photos taken. And I was like the guy who raised his hand and said, I know how to use a camera, which I kind of didn't know. I mean, I knew how to use it. Now I really know how to use a camera.
Yeah.
So they gave me a camera. Well, then that ended up meaning that I would have to go with the PR people even before I was assigned on underneath of them. And they'd be like, oh, go get Matt. Matt will come. Matt will do photos. So it put me again in a lot of rooms I shouldn't have been in because I just had to take a photo. And so then you get to watch people who are, not that they're better than me, but like we're talking about elected officials and stuff. And so there's decorum.
Yeah.
And how things need to be, and then like how to make sure like you can blend into a wall. I mean, I'm really good at standing in a room and no one seeing me because that's what I had to do. So
I can't see that.
I know, because I'm like so bigger
weird.
than life, right?
Yeah, you are.
But if you ask my
In
people,
all ways.
but when we're in show mode, like I'll stand behind a pillar all day and hide. I have no problem.
I've been at a lot of events that you are
I stay
there.
away.
And I have a hard time finding you.
I'll come
'Cause
say-
I'm like,
I'll come say hi to you.
Because you track me down and I
But then
try
I
and find you. I'm
disappear.
like, okay, they're here. I know they're here. I see their truck. They're unloaded, whatever it is. I
Yep.
know that you guys, and I'll look for you. I can't find you.
Yeah,
You're
no,
right.
you know how to hide. And you know, like, and I hate to say, but you know, like the rule, like I work with a lot of politicians and elected officials in what we do. I will do and again, no one taught me this and I don't feel less than, but I won't speak to them unless they speak to me first because it's not my place. And I don't feel less than, like I kind of am the hired help, but I don't think I'm the hired help in a bad way.
Yeah.
And what we do, it's not a hired help in a bad way,
No.
but it's like the mayor, I know the mayor really well. And if he comes and says hi to me and shakes my hand, gives me a hug, great. But I don't need to go assert myself into that mix
Yeah.
There's no point. That's not why I'm there. I'm there to serve. I'm there to give customer service, to do an end all. So I think I learned it because I worked for someone else for a very long time. And I just literally watched how they all handled themselves. And I feel like I had some really good leaders to watch. It's kind of funny, politicians, name a politician, someone loves them, someone hates them.
Yep.
The same with the politician I worked for. Some people loved him, some people hated him. I'm just really good, I think, at watching and trying to take the good. No one's perfect, but you figure out how to be in the room. Now, the thing I will tell you that I dreamed for someday, I don't know, I read this quote once, but at some point, I want to be the person that walks into the room that never needs to be introduced. Because in our industry,
Yeah.
we are paid a lot of money to know who walks in the room, and they never have to be introduced to us. So like my people are really good if, in even our small community of Colorado Springs, if certain people walk into the room, my staff will either send a message or start to talk amongst each other. And it's not an awe, but it's to let everybody know that we need to be in our best. So-and-so's in the room. So-and-so just came in. Hey, they're here. Do you see they're over there? And it's not like a big, long conversation, but it's a quick, they're in the room.
Yeah.
And I just read a quote once that you want to be the person that never has to be introduced, that when you walk into the room, everybody in the room knows you're there. And that's how I want to be someday. I got
You'll
a
be
long
there.
ways to go, though. I got a long ways.
We'll be there together.
Okay.
Yeah.
But think
Hashtag
about
goals.
Have you ever thought about that, though? There's people who walk in the room and you instantly know they're there. Did they have to come tell you who they are? Nope.
Even, okay, you and I have known our mayor for a really long
Yep.
time, right? Even before he was mayor, he was still
Yep.
that person.
Way before, right?
Way before. I remember when I first met him. Do you know he's the one who convinced me and Brian to move our businesses to downtown Colorado Springs? And he
I
didn't
did
even
not.
know us. Yeah, he is. And he didn't even know us. We saw him speak. And in that moment, I was like, I want to know him. I want to know him. He's going to be my friend. And put it out there. And 6 months later, we were friends, having coffee, checking in,
Crazy.
having conversations. Yeah. But he was always that person who walked in the
He's how I
room.
met you, huh?
Yeah, he is.
But that's
Yeah.
before he was mayor, too.
Yeah, way before he was mayor.
Because I had a
Yeah.
problem that I needed fixed, and I called him and said, hey. And then he said, this is who you need to call. So we went and had
He
lunch.
said, call. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And we had a great lunch.
We did.
And then you grilled the shit out of me.
Yeah, but then you
You
told
were
me
awesome.
about your husband. And then I was like, I need to talk to your husband. So,
And you grilled the shit out of him.
and then it worked. And now we're all big, happy family.
No, I think actually out of all of our clients, at least on the HR branches side, I don't know about the BRW side, but on the branches side, I think you're the one who's done the most due diligence on us ever in our history.
Is that good? That might scare me.
I think that
Everybody-
gives me a lot of confidence.
You need to do your job. Let's do a commercial for you.
Right. It gives me confidence in our friendship and our relationship, though, because you took the time to actually care about what you were walking into, and understanding what you were about to engage in is so important.
But that's easy, though. And again, maybe I'm different, but it's easy because, again, if you read an entrepreneur book or business book or whatever, if you want to grow, you got to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, wise advisors. And so, like, you aren't to me an HR company. You're in my Rolodex of my tried and true, safe, wise advisors that like, this is who I call in this situation, who I call.
Yes.
And so for me, you may call it being a gorilla, but what I was thinking is like, okay, if this is going to be, your wise advisor, I better really know that they know their stuff or that they can help me. I mean, it's like you want a good attorney if you're going to have an attorney. So you better ask a lot of questions before you hire the attorney.
Hell yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so like, and you hear about it, like your attorney and for me, it's like, I got a payroll company and then I have, HR and I have accountant. And then I have a lot of people in my industry that are like business owners that I will call.
Yeah.
And then for those like, okay. And then for our industry too, it's small enough. I always have to make sure they're like out of state because
you do.
Because you can't call anybody local because they're not going to give you that much advice because you're in competition.
They're going to
with them.
give you bad
So you gotta
advice.
find people
like, don't buy that machine.
You got to find all the people farther out and be like, hey, like,
Yeah.
how do you do this? Would you do it? So I don't know. That's my pitch for, I guess, for any business owner, if they're going to hire people that they're going to let into their business and help run it, you should ask a lot of questions.
You should.
Or
You should.
maybe I'm too type A and control freak.
No. Yeah. Probably. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I am too. So there's
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But that's a perfect segue though. Lessons learned. So we've been able to kind of uncover a few themes here. unpaid work.
Yeah.
That hits all kinds of things. Reputation management, which I think is just so critical. We've uncovered a little bit of leadership. There's a theme there. And then do your homework. So tell us, like, lessons learned. If you were to, and I hate saying talking to new entrepreneurs or even entrepreneurs, period, but like professionals.
Yep.
Who are sitting in this moment like, fuck, I don't know what I'm going to do. What do you tell them sitting in those moments?
The money thing's a little bit easier now. I mean, again, we're in an industry where a lot of people do have to pay up front. But again, we've picked a client base that has some regulations that don't allow it.
Yeah.
So outside of that client base, so the other client base, you really have to either know your people through and through. So like a history of work and then a history of being paid.
Yeah.
If not, we do find ourselves asking for deposits and more money up front than we used to. It's just hard. But I think that's like one lesson is absolutely like go get their money. I mean, we just took some money, a deposit from someone that normally I wouldn't have, but they wanted to give me money. And so I was like, I'm going to go ahead and take your money.
Please do. Thank you.
And so I think being okay with that and being like, hey, like we'll go ahead. I think too, I've always, and it's going to sound weird, but you know, like, okay, if you go to buy something, anything, right? Even Amazon or like to the Apple store, like, right? You don't get the good until you've paid for it. But it's always been weird for me because we're service based. So it feels funny to me, and it shouldn't. I want to be very clear about that. But it feels funny for me to take the money before I've provided the product.
Yeah.
And so my suggestion is get over that, because if you're in service base, you have to get that money up front. The other thing too is in the event industry, if I don't take the money up front and they're short, well, the caterers are going to get paid, but you're not.
Yep.
The decor company is going to get paid, but you're not. And I can assure you there's not a single decor company that will show up with decor without being paid in full. Like they flat out will not do it. So I think the takeaway on that is get your money up front or get deposits or have long lasting relationships. I mean, again, some of my clients I've worked with for 12 years. So I know that I'm going to get paid.
Can I throw in an unsolicited real quick?
Yep.
You also deserve to get paid for the cool stuff. And you
Yes.
deserve to get paid for the cool stuff handsomely. So you are, not only you, but like all the listeners too. And I think that's one thing even I fall guilty of is...
Well, I'll throw something out for you. I'll throw something out for you and your company. I mean, I remember like a year ago, you changed your rates a little bit, I bet, right?
Yeah, we did.
That was great because I remember Megan, I think it's through, I remember the phone call with her all day. I had no problem. And I feel like you guys even were a little bit worried, probably.
Every time. I hate asking for money.
And I just remember like talking to Megan, I was like, yeah, like we're good, like just whatever. And even I think she was like, not taken aback, but like I was probably really easy to talk to. But it's because I know the value of what I'm paying for.
Because we're both service-based organizations, right? We don't have a tangible product to be like, okay, well, here, this is what I'm going to give you, right?
Yep.
It's all based on our expertise and our knowledge and our capabilities. And you can't really prove it with a tangible item saying, this is what you're going to get.
Yep.
Right? It's really at the end of the experience.
Yes.
And it's hard in a way to ask for money for that promise of an experience.
Yep.
And I think
we even did one. I usually don't do this, but I am proud of myself for doing it. We had an event like literally the truck showed up. This happened a couple of weeks ago. The truck showed up. My guys were there. They called the client, and the client said, we just canceled the event. And historically, I wouldn't have taken any money for that, but we did take money.
You should have.
We did.
That was your time. You could have booked something else for that.
We did. We gave them a deal because it's a long-standing client, and sometimes you need to think about there's a bigger picture, and there's a much bigger picture with that client. Yeah. But I was able to get enough money to cover what I would call the admin costs and the cost for that truck and the cost for the guys to come in. Because if you think about it, I had all the guys pack all the gear. Then another earlier in the week, all the admin to get the event ready, which is actually pretty substantial. Then another crew came in, loaded the truck, showed up, was getting ready, well, didn't even get to do anything. is canceled. But they still had to drive the truck back, unload it all, and then my guys have to downsort everything back. So I was at least smart enough to be like, hey, and the client is a good client. Client actually offered to pay in full.
Wow.
But I knew that what they were doing was a fundraiser. And I knew that.
Yeah.
And so we talked internally and talked with Chloe because she's the client relationship manager. And I was like, here's what we're going to do. And just, update the invoice and send it over to them. But that's going to get me a lot more work than if I had just said, no, you got to pay me in full.
Oh, absolutely.
So you got to float with it a little bit.
There's a balance.
Yep.
There's a balance. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what's your next lesson learned? Advice, whatever you want to call it.
Next lesson.
Wisdom from the king.
The wisdom from the king. I'm going to kind of the joke of the king, but I think we hear it a lot. And that is, if you own the business, whatever happens on you, it doesn't matter if an employee made a mistake. It's yours, and not that it's your mistake. You didn't make the mistake, but it's
You own the results.
yeah. So you have to own it, and so not being afraid to be a leader. And I would say that's one thing that I can't tell you what it felt like 20 years ago anymore, but I can tell you now it doesn't scare me to be a leader. It doesn't scare me to have a tough conversation. I've had to have plenty of tough conversations, but you can always handle a tough conversation with a lot of grace.
Yeah.
And in the way you take it. So I think the takeaway really is well, I don't get to do it as much anymore. I sit at a desk a little bit more than I would like, but be the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
So never ask your people to do anything that you're not willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that 100%.
Yeah.
And I've been out, we talk about, okay, great takeaway. You talk about exhaustion. So we did an amazing event last year up in Denver. Crazy, crazy hours. It's the last day over. Snow came in. It's an outdoor show. We start to clean up. And I literally was watching my team crumble because this was the end of 7 days. But I'll tell you what I was thinking. And if they listen to it, they probably already know this. I had a lot of financial risk outside in the snow. So I had to get cleaned up. We couldn't go, even though we had more time, we actually had the whole day the next day. And we had the whole day, plus we had to split crew going to their show. But when I looked around, that costs money, that costs money, that costs money. That can't be in the rain, that can't be in the snow. So we pushed really, really hard. And I remember it got to midnight and I had some external labor come in and they were gone at midnight. And I wasn't satisfied with where we were at. As in, bluntly, from Matt's opinion, Eddie Sound still had a lot of risk available for loss overnight.
Yeah.
But I had some people who had crumbled. And I mean crumbled. And rightfully so. I want to be very clear about that. We had asked a lot. And
That's a tough position to be in.
And I stood there and I pulled them all together at midnight, let the other people go. And I probably had 12. There's probably 12 or 15 of them. And I made a decision that certain people were going back to the hotel. They weren't given an option. And I looked at them and said, you're out, and you're out. And then I looked at the rest of the team and said, I need to still do some things here. I'm going to stay. If you want to go back to the hotel, you let me know or not. And I went to each person, and every person I went to said, no, we're still here. And then the tip of the spear was when the other people had left, I was running across the field with them, jogging at midnight, and trust me, my body hurt. I am not as young as them. But you know what? Every one of them, we all went to another level, and we worked for another 2 hours, and we were able to protect all of our investment and get everything done. And we actually made the next day even better for them. But it's about, I may sit at a desk, but I always tell them, if you want to see me work, challenge me, because I will work right alongside of you. And it's a different work. You're there, and I have to do a lot of grab that, take that there, do that, pull that, do that. But I'm right there, and I'm grabbing stuff with them and doing what I can. And so I think that's a huge lesson is don't ever ask your people to do something that you're not willing to do, because they'll know it.
They will.
They'll know it.
And they will eat you alive for it.
Yep. And they'll disrespect you or have less respect for you in the long run. And they'll just be like, oh, well, all of a sudden it's he just sits in his office.
Oh, yeah.
But if you can show them, I'm not just going to sit in my office. Like I'm there, and I'm sure with, mine's we have a physical job, but I'm sure like with what you guys even do, like you have late nights where something has to be done.
Yeah.
And if you stay with your employees to get it done, they're going to think a lot more of you than if you're like, remember, it's got to be done. See you tomorrow morning, and they're there for 4 hours after you. That's not going to be chill.
Yeah, yeah. You know, lately I found myself in this position where I've been taking on less and less clients that I actually support. And it's more, my team taking on the clients. But what I'm finding, and I kind of love about this, is my role in my transition has actually been to be the support system for my team. I'm the advisor to them. When they have those big, complex, hairy issues, they come to me and I help them, tear it apart and understand and be that conductor, as you kind of said,
like you were wrong. Instead of going to them and telling them it's going wrong, you should go to them and ask them, what do you need from me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then that's probably why it's going wrong, is they have a need that's not being met.
Yep.
And the owner can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of times, maybe not all the times.
If you're there and available and they're ready, because we're surface-based and we deal with complex issues all the time, like my team is like, they've got it there, their A game, but now they have someone else that they can come to and, tear things apart and consider and talk about it. And I like being that advisor to my team and that conductor.
It's one way you can scale too.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
You got to Chick-fil-A yourself.
Have you ever read that book by Kathy Truitt? I've got it if you want to borrow it. It's a really good book. Anyways, okay, so I digress. Yep. All right, so we've got great lessons learned. Yep. We've gone through some really, really, in my mind, profound experiences. Thank you. Thank you so much for your openness, your vulnerability. I had no doubt, though. Did you have any doubt?
No doubt.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
If anybody's going to say it the way it is in this town,
it's probably the truth.
It's Matt Stoneback. Everybody.
Kind of wrong. I come across abrasive to some people, I think.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too. So,
But usually we'll somewhat tell you how it is at the right time.
Yeah, especially with one or two of those in me. Oh boy, it's like you're really gonna get. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up today's episode. But what I want to do is just give you a moment to tell everybody here how in the world they can have Eddie Sound Rockbox and the magnificent team that Matt has built to manage, provide the AV, the what you call it, the LVPMS.
So I never used to say it, but AVL, so audio video lighting.
See, I don't know that.
Audio video lighting.
I should know it. Yep. Sorry, AVL.
No, but I didn't. But think about it. For a long time, like I had audio and I had lighting, but I didn't have video, so I couldn't really call myself an AVL. But now we do video.
Now you do.
Well, so,
I've seen it in real life.
He can do it all.
Yeah, he can do all the cool things for your party. So call Matt, have him throw your party. You probably will never see him because he's the man in the back. But Matt, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and how they can do business with you.
That's easy. Our website is just eddiesound.com. So to make it clear, it's EDDY, not IE, EDDY, and then sound.com. And on there, there's like a contact form, or they can just email literally info@eddiesound.com. That's probably the easiest way. Like we have some social media, but we're blessed, which means we usually have more work coming into us than we can even handle. So we don't worry about too much on the marketing side of things, if that makes sense. But that's the best way to do it. It's just reach out to us through email. And I like email because we're trying to grow and scale, and it lets me get that email to the right team member so that the right team member can follow up quickly.
That's perfect.
Because if it's to me,
black hole.
You don't want to see my phone. Don't want to see the notification bubbles. Just going to be honest.
I'm with you.
Yep.
Gosh, just over the weekend, I came into the office with 125 emails. I'm like, really?
Oh, I think my phone says I have like 30,000 emails unread.
Oh, that's my personal email. We're not going to talk about that.
You actually have that, like the notification bubble? Oh, man, that would stress me
recently,
out.
Though, I did do another weird hack. I turned off all my notifications other than text, phone, and email are the only three. Every other notification's been turned off.
Okay.
I don't need it.
We're going to wrap up this episode really quick. So thank you so much for joining us. But I've got a really amazing email tool for you. Okay. And if you comment on whatever channel, I'll tell you what the email tool is that cleans up your email automatically.
I like this.
So, but otherwise, Thank you, my friend Matt. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Jason, you got any closing remarks or
I
thoughts?
don't think so. Nope. We'll see you guys on the next episode.